I am Deepak. I'm a researcher at Polkastarter, and today I will be talking about what are NFTs, how it came into existence, how does an NFT get its value, and how I personally evaluate an NFT and what can be a good framework to evaluate any NFT. So let's get right into it. So now let's talk about how NFTs and cryptocurrencies came into existence. In 2009, a very famous person, Satoshi Nakamoto, published a white paper that showcased how you can trust blockchain and the proof of work consensus mechanism to really transfer something of value without copying it or duplicating the asset while you're doing it. For instance, take an example of WhatsApp or an email app. When you share the information with the recipient, what it does is it copies the information from your device to the recipient, right? So now you end up with two copies. What it will change when it comes to financial assets is you don't want, once you're sharing or sending $200 to your friend or a colleague or a family member, you don't want that to get copied. And that is what the Bitcoin white paper published by Satoshi Nakamoto really solved, wherein you were not trusting a centralized party like a bank that we used to trust in the traditional space. But unlike the traditional system, here you were not trusting a single person but a distributed blockchain network that had a mechanism to reduce some amount from your wallet and credit the same amount that you're transferring to the recipient's wallet. And that's how the cryptocurrency and NFTs right now have come into existence and are blossoming today. So now let's talk about non-fungible tokens or NFTs. NFTs are tokens that reside on the blockchain, which is a distributed database, and the main purpose of NFTs is to track ownership of any physical or a digital asset on the blockchain. So you can track who owned it first, who owned it in between, and who's the current owner of the digital asset that the NFT represents. NFT can track ownership of digital pictures like JPEGs. It can track ownership of real estate houses. It can track ownership of music files. It can track ownership of royalties and various other things. There's just no limitation to what you can represent through an NFT. Alright, so the next question would be, how does the NFT get its value? Essentially, the way to look at it is NFTs track ownership of digital and physical assets. These assets can drive utility right now, or these can drive utility in a long term. Let me give you some examples of that. For instance, imagine that you own an NFT that gives you access to a game. You are going to play that game for hours, and that's the value you are getting out of that NFT. It is easier to assign a value in that case. If the NFT represents a music file, then you can listen to the music for hours and days and weeks, and that's how you can associate a value to the NFT. But then there are NFTs that do not have intrinsic value or utility right now, but these can be monetized in a long term. A good example can be a JPEG that is not giving you any utility right now. You cannot use it to play a game, or you cannot watch TV series where the character is in it. But in a long term, it can be the case. If the team is super strong and has experience in these fields and know how to monetize these NFTs in a long term, then you can speculate on the value of these NFTs. There are many ways in which these NFTs can be monetized. I'm just taking an example of a JPEG character. The ways in which we have historically seen various brands monetize their licensed IPs is by, for example, making toys, making games, making TV series, making merchandises, making movies, and making, various themed Disney parks and so on and so forth. So there are many ways in which you can really associate value to an NFT. It really depends on the asset, the current value of the asset, and the long-term value that the team can bring and the community can bring to that asset or the IP. So now let's talk about how an NFT can disrupt any industry and what are the different use cases of these NFTs. Let me take example of the music industry, music or entertainment industry. There are various projects that are leveraging NFTs to give ownership of a single track or a complete album to its users. So there are projects like Catalog where a user can go and buy a single track or the complete album. That's one use case. The second use case can be tokenization of royalties. 𝗹𝗲𝗿𝘀, which works on generative sound, is one great example where they are tokenizing these royalties for generative sound. Royale is another such example, which is sort of one of the initial projects that started working on tokenization of royalties. The third use case can be creating the music by itself, working with the stem of the music and vocals of the music and things like that. Soundmint is one such example of a project that is experimenting with NFTs and creation of music using NFTs. These are some of the great use cases in the music industry, but we have seen many such examples of NFTs disrupting other industries like gaming, for instance. The gaming characters, their accessories, their weapons can all be NFTs. The metaverses such as Sandbox and Decentraland have shown us that land items in these metaverses, the advertisement, the inventory, and various other things within these metaverses can all be NFTs and can be represented through NFTs. So there are various different ways in which NFTs will be used in the future. A good way to think about is any good or service that you can use in the metaverse or in the digital ecosystem or in the physical world can be represented through an NFT. So now let's talk about how do you value an NFT? What can be a good framework to evaluate any NFT? The way I do it is I try to assess the utility of the NFT. If the NFT, for example, is giving you current utility, you can really determine the value of the NFT that you should pay for it. For example, if it's an NFT that you can own to get access to a music file you can listen to any time, then you can understand how much you want to pay for that. Then there are NFTs which do not have much utility right now, but have a potential to get a lot of monetization value in the future. A good example can be a lot of JPEG creatures that a lot of artists and projects are creating. Now, an important thing there will be to really look at the team. Is the team really good enough? Do the team have expertise of monetizing something in the past? Do the team have experience of building games around it? The other thing to look at is the community strength. Is the community really feeling connected with this NFT project? If the community is able to connect with the character, they are really interested in understanding the character development, understanding how it's going to evolve over the coming years. And the conversations are not just about price and when listing and things like that, but rather more about the project development. These are sort of the three most important things that you should look at when you're evaluating any NFT. I hope the video was helpful. Feel free to reach out to us through comments or questions on Telegrams, and we will try to address them in our next video. See you soon, and thank you so much for listening.